Is that a motion?
No, it's not yet. I'm going to let you ask any other.
Is there anyone else who wants?
Can they bring this to court?
It's a good question. They are allowed, there is an appeal period.
The gas station.
Okay, we're talking right now, excuse me, we're talking now about continuance. If you have something to say relative to the continuance, you're making the argument that if we had both parties here, we could discuss. It's not appropriate for us to discuss that at this time, I'm sorry.
You got to have me yell, Rick.
How's that? Well, anyway, my name's Rick Russell, and I live in 18 Beach Drive. And I think you ought to deny the continuance. I think you ought to default the applicant, and I think you ought to dismiss their application for a special exception with prejudice. That's what I think.
Resident of Kingston for the last 9 years. I also hold a bachelor's degree in environmental science. I am here as a member of a younger generation to protect against the building of this new gas station. As you may know, an aquifer is an important source of fresh water that can be used in a variety of ways, including agriculture. If we allow this new gas station to be built upon this aquifer, we decide...
Excuse me, I'm going to interrupt you.
Sure.
Because we're talking about continuing the hearing, not the arguments against the subject.
Okay.
So
can I take you guys on a little trip with me real quick though?
Yes.
It has to do with it. I just want you guys to think about for the next meeting, for the next continuance. So I decided to do a little experiment because that is what environmental science majors do. So I went to the local gas station where I took photos of the condition of the ground, cracks in the ground, and spillage from these pumps. If you were to go and fill up your tank, how many little droplets of gas do you drop when you pull it out of your car? There is 0.0017 flow ounces within a droplet. If you push those droplets, 2 droplets for every 100 cars that come through, you get about 9.5 gallons of gas being spilled a year. Or sorry, 10
excuse me, I understand what you're driving at, but you're making the argument at the wrong time.
Yes, I understand, sir.
And therefore, I will.
This is a preview.
This is just what I want everyone to
The young
understand.
generation, they should look, listen.
You're talking to 3 people, there are 2 other members of the board that are not sitting here. So it's, you know, all 3 of us have to agree.
Is this public comment right now?
No,
Can she address that during public comment?
there's not gonna be a hearing. We're gonna vote to give them a continuance and
We're gonna vote on whether to do it.
on whether to give them a continuance first. Does anybody have anything to say on the continuance? Mr. Cool.
Mr. Chairman, Phil Coon, 6 Order Road. I'm just curious what the next step would be, as they have not filed a Superior Court yet, and if this continuance is granted, what would the next step be for this board? Just so that
Next
people
meeting
here
to
know.
hold, excuse me, at the next meeting, we would hold this rehearing.
And when would that be?
When? The 10th, March 10th.
What was that entail?
It'd be a de novo, as it was last time, scheduled to be a de novo hearing. It means we would start from the beginning, all evidence would be presented, all people would be able to make the case. And my faith is that we will have, and we will ensure that we have a full board, a full 5-member board at that time, even if it requires an alternate. And for that reason, I would like to make a motion. Now, as much as I agree with the idea that the applicant's in default by not having appeared today, prepared to argue the case in the event that we did not grant a continuance. However, because of the unusual circumstances of having only 3 people here, I think that's sufficient reason to grant a one-time continuance to March 10th at 7 p.m. For the rehearing that we've already agreed to. And that's my motion.
Second? Mr. Hart? Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Continue. The 10th. Thank you all. I'm sorry you had to come from this. But we didn't find out until late.
And this will, you will not get another notice, if you're a butter, you won't get a notice in the mail. This will be your notice that it's March 10th at 7 p.m. And my opinion would be that I would be disinclined to continue further. But
Why is he going to Superior Court?
that has nothing to do with us. We're not making a decision based on his threat to go to court. And the court wouldn't happen before next March anyway, so.
So the court can't say that it's going to stand on the previous decision?
The court can decide whatever it wants to decide. That has nothing to do with our decision here. We're only continuing this because we don't have a full board. And in fairness to the applicant, as we did to the previous applicant, that's our reason for continuation. So Ally's giving us the cut signal. we've
We have another hearing coming up. You're all welcome to stay if you'd like.
I just wanted to make sure that what you can ask Ellie if she wants to forward that letter out to the town council. I think I just want to make sure you had a copy to give.
The next hearing, thank you. Thank you. I know this isn't easy. Thank you.
We have another hearing coming up.
You did mention, I think, Susan got it.
That was a quick trip. Yeah, actually. Just to go ahead. Okay, let's continue. I'm going to give you this one. Mr. Dufresne, how are you this evening? Okay, we're going to ask the meeting to come to order so we can continue with our third and final hearing. And now all we need is an agenda and everything. Run that for a second. Okay, great. Yep. Okay, this is Hawksbridge of South Kingston, LLC, Jim Dufresne, tax map R3, lot 4, LU 4020. This is a public hearing whereby the applicant seeks a variance in the terms of Article 110, Section 110.4A of the Town of Kingston zoning ordinance, and as the terms be waived to permit construction of one age-restricted single-family residential condo unit, part of Village and Granite Fields condominiums, to be located within the 1,000-foot setback from Route 125. A 50-foot variance is required. Mr. Dufresne and Mr. Zilch.
Does everybody have plans?
Excuse me?
Plans? Do you have plans?
Yes.
Do you have the your approved site plan?
Excuse me?
Do you have a copy of your approved site plan here?
It's not an approved site plan. We're coming here first.
No, I know what you got, but.
Yeah, we're gonna have a couple. Should we approve this, then we have several additional.
Yeah, we'd have to go to site plan approval with the planning
Oh,
board.
right, you
Yeah.
have to go for.
Yeah, without a
site
doubt. Oh, you may.
Always great reading your stuff.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, these are the same maps, Charlie, the same one here?
Excuse me?
These are the same one?
Yeah. I think so. I think that one has a splash of color though.
Yeah. Okay. Proceed.
Good evening, Charlie Zilch from SEC and Associates. Here with Jim Dufresne on behalf of Hawksbridge of South Kingston LLC. Obviously, Jim's the owner. This is for a variance request relating to the Village of Granite Fields condominium development. The intent of this application is to seek a variance to relocate one of the proposed age-restricted single-family residential units from its current approved location to a new location, as you said, that would be partially within the 1,000-foot setback from Route 125. So that's the intent of the application. I know everybody's quite familiar with Granite Fields in its entirety. It's basically a development with 5 land unit condominium areas. It supports a mix of commercial, recreational, as well as this residential use, all within a commercial 3 zone. So the entire property is commercial 3, about 169 acres. And our focus is on the residential development, and that's on a 17-acre tract in the southeast corner of the entire property, pretty much right along that 1,000-foot setback. So that's the original approved site plan that I've got up on the board, and we'll take a look at that for now. So the community itself consists of 34 residential units, with the majority fully completed at this point. There's a few partially completed, 2 or 3 I think, and then there's a few lots that have yet to be developed. So all of the units are located, like I said, adjacent to or just outside that 1,000-foot residential setback, and that's established from the center line of Route 125. So each unit, it's located on its own limited common area. Remember, this is condominium development. And those little limited common areas allow for a limited amount of private space around each one of the units. So each one has limited common area, and then the rest of the development is common area around that. So access is pretty straightforward. It comes in off of Diamond Oaks, turns into bent grass, and then you have Mulligan Way coming in off of bent grass. So you have a loop road into it, and Mulligan off of that. So the subject of the application is focused on basically just one of those units, and this is not constructed, obviously. This is unit 20. If you look at the tax map, I'm just going to refer to it as unit 20, but on the tax map it's LU 4020, just so we're clear on that. But I'll just refer to it as 20 to keep it simple here. So, as this board, I'm sure, as many of the board members on other boards, this particular unit has created a little bit of contention between the planning board and the previous developer, who had elected to move the potential dwelling unit without any planning board approval. So, if you look at the board here, this is the original approved site plan, and this was recorded in 2013. Put this around, cat toy here. So that's where Unit 20 was supposed to be originally located. There's Bent Grass Circle, Mulligan Way. This is going to be the first unit off of Mulligan Way. And it was going to be placed in front of Units 18 and 19. 18 and 19 were going to be served by one single driveway, and it kind of wrapped around 20, and 20 was going to be in front of those 2 units. So you just flip to another page here. Right here. As I said, the previous developer that was working on the project, constructing the project, he basically built 18 and 19, these 2 units, first. And what he did is he gave them individual driveways. If you recall, I just showed you that it was supposed to be a shared driveway that kind of came in right at the intersection of 2 roadways and wrapped around behind 20. So in an effort to not disrupt the driveway going to 18 and 19 near the driveways, he elected to move it over here. What he did is he basically moved Unit 3 over and Unit 4 over from the original site plan, sandwiched 20 in there. And he did this, this was in 2018, I think, when he did that. So he got started on it. He asked his engineer at the time to record a plan that showed the relocated unit, or the land, the LCA areas. And he got started, actually installed the foundation, and town caught wind of it, came out and said, wait a minute, you can't do that. You're way off plan. You can't just move one unit from one street over to here. So they gave him a cease and desist and asked him to remove that foundation, which eventually removed. So once they started looking at the development, they noticed there was some other problems in relation to drainage and a lot of things that didn't get constructed properly by the previous developer. So now Jim has taken over as the project developer. That previous developer is no longer involved. And Jim has worked hard, and I've worked with him over the last couple of years now to try and rectify a lot of those problems. So we started off first with all the drainage issues. And Jim spent a lot of time, effort, and energy, and has gone in there with the approval of the planning board, working with the town's agents, and taking care of a lot of those problems. I think he's pretty much done with the exception of just final pavement out there. So now that he's taken care of the drainage issues, worked all through that, he wants to turn his attention to this issue here. And so we kind of kicked around some ideas on it. And one of the ideas that we came up with, rather than trying to put it back or seek approval to put it back in this location here, which seems to upset everybody, and it kind of blocked off access to the two shared leach fields. There's two leach fields right in here. And this would be your access into it, so it would block that. So it's not really a good location for it. So Jim came up with an idea, and I think it's a great idea. I'll show you what it is. This is a bit larger scale, so I'm just going to adjust to that. So what he wanted to do to address that is basically, this is Bentgrass Circle here, the lower portion of it, and there's Mulligan Way coming down here. This is the original location where 20 is supposed to be. There's 18 and 19, like I showed you on that original plan. Is basically take that unit and the limited common area associated with it and bring it over here. This is the 1,000-foot setback. That's unit number 34, and place it right here. Now, when you come into development, and I drove over there after you kind of pitched this idea to me, one of the first few units you see is up here off of Bentgrass Circle. So where this location is, actually looks like it's further away from 125 than the first few units that you encounter when you come in there. And then the next thing I noticed is that all the infrastructure is right there and readily available to hook this up. So this would, if you put this unit 20 and tie it into the leach field line here, you'll be tying into the same system that it was tied into originally. This location over here is going to do the same leach field over here. So that works. There's a water line right here. You can come in, tap into that water line, you have water service, and the driveway location's fine. You have great sight distance from there. The road's relatively flat, so there's really no issue with anywhere having a driveway on that. So that's what Jim would like to do, but obviously the one issue we have is that it's just inside of the 1,000-foot setback. We're about 950 feet from the center line of Route 125. So I thought it's a good way to address a problem, a long-standing problem. It doesn't seem to adversely affect anybody here. It'll look just like it's part of the development, or meant to be part of this development. And I'd find it'd be difficult to discern where that 1,000-foot setback. I don't think you'd be able to tell that this one. It certainly wouldn't look like it's within a 1,000-foot setback. It wouldn't look odd compared to the location of the other ones, because the way Bentgrass Circle comes down, kind of on an angle, in an opposite angle to where that setback is. Like I said, these units are the first ones that you would encounter as you came into the development. So I think it's a good solution. Obviously, we need relief from the zoning board to do this, because it is a residential setback from 125, and we're right at that point. Do keep in mind, we were here just the other year, and we were granted an approval for the veteran apartment, or the veteran condominiums in the clubhouse, and that was about 700 feet from there. So we have a nice transition. The more general commercial is close to 125 as intended by this ordinance, and then it transitions to the recreational with a mix of the condominium for the veterans, and then you have this age-restricted development beyond that. So they seem to buffer and blend from one to another fairly well. So any questions on the request?
This is
Charlie, how many units are approved, currently approved amended site plan
There's 34 in total
that were approved?
that are approved, yes.
That includes this number 20?
This would be
This would be-
34, yes. Yeah.
This
If
would
this
be
was the last one
34.
built, this would be the 34th unit.
Yeah, it clears up all the issues on number 20, where it was gonna be located by moving it here.
However, in the planning board, in order to get that approval, number 20 was removed from the plan, not just moved, it was removed. And the approval, and I believe that the selectmen asked for clarification on this, and they received it, that the approved site plan is for 33 units. So this isn't a matter of moving it. This location here that you showed, we moved from, it never got built and it was never approved. The whole question about Bentgrass Circle and providing an access, trying to fit that another unit in there, was disallowed. so that there's one unit removed from the site plan. So I believe your site plan, current site plan, and I think, two selectmen can probably concur on this, that the approved site plan is for 33 units.
What site plan are you referring to?
The amended site plan was approved by the planning board, that is currently, germane to the site. Not the plan that you submitted that says 2013. We're talking about the plan that where during the planning board meeting, in order to get approval, you said that unit 20 was removed.
They didn't want to show unit 20 on the plan set. There's a big difference. There's a big difference. I never agreed to lowering the unit total in this. I just agreed to take unit 20 off of that plan set. And that plan set, that the most recently approved site plan, the amended site plan, was for road drainage and road construction.
And
it specifically says that on the site plan.
You have to show the units that are proposing to be built. It's not just drainage. In other words, the site plan is a site plan, but what you're working with is the most recent site plan. It's not the 2013 site plan or 2018 site plan. It's the site plan that was approved and signed most recent. And that will delineate the number of units. So this is in addition to the units approved in the amended site plan. This is not just a sort of a floating unit that's looking for a place to call home, and apparently didn't find it because it's off the lot. There is no approval in the site plan for the 34th unit.
I disagree.
Okay. Well, I believe that we sent, and I think if you want to ask the select, and the other selectman that's here, he was instrumental in getting that.
Yeah, because it's my understanding, I've been speaking with Robert Stewart, our building inspector, it's my understanding that approving the location of this number 20, or 1020, whatever it is, cleans up all the issues with the development, is my guess. I mean, it needs to be, they still need an amended site plan approved by the planning board. They do need that, and they do need to submit.
No, I'm not talking about what this, adding this unit would be. I'm talking about the current amended site plan. The current site plan has been approved.
Richie, is there any way you can help us with this here? I don't understand where Peter's going with it, because we're getting two different signals here.
I'm not sure how I want to answer this, but the original plan had 34 houses. Then with all the shifting and everything happened to 33. But I think the plan was still for 34 houses, it just didn't show the 34th site because they were trying to decide where to put it.
Because of the driveway that went through 18
Because
and
of the
19.
driveway and, one plan showed it in front of the two houses.
Right.
And this seemed like the best solution to where it should go.
Well, the question is then, what was the document that was approved at the planning board that felt that you requested from the selectmen?
We requested
Clarification.
them to put 33 houses on that and asked for it, which they did not do. The plan still said 34 houses and showed 33. And the reason was I'm guessing, speculating that they were coming back with this, plan. And they know that if this plan goes through, they have to go for site plan review to get it approved by the planning board still. This is just a variance to see whether or not to allow it in that setback area.
Right.
Does that make sense, Peter?
So this isn't really a decision about whether the 30.
Right,
They may not get the 34th house, but if they get it, then the 50-foot variance is what they would need to locate it in that spot on the property. Is that correct?
Right, but it would require a hardship other than a hardship created by the applicant or the applicant's predecessors.
Well, there's a couple of ways of looking at that. Is it a hardship on the applicant, or would it be a hardship on the current owners to have it put in some of the other places? This is the best solution. So this may put less impact on the current property owners.
Again,
I know, well, I won't get into it.
our decision as to whether the house
Whether or not within the 15
Build
days,
residentially out of
But
residential.
this is what, just like the other things we've talked about, this is here relevant to us to whether, if we approve the fact that he can build a house, put a house there, and he has to go back to the planning board, and the planning board says, no, you can't, that's the planning board's problem. But, you know, we're not here to, in my opinion, decide or say, oh, geez, you can't do it because the planning board thinks you might have 33 or 34 houses on the property.
The plan, how many houses are shown on the current plan?
That plan, like I said, the intent of that plan, it says it clearly on that plan was to replace the drainage and grading plan that was within the original plan set, the 2013 plan set. That plan is purely for revising and fixing the drainage out there. And this did come up during the TRC. We had TRCs prior to going to planning board, and it came up about the Unit 20 and its issues that it has that's associated with Unit 20. And it was requested that I just don't show Unit 20 on there. And it's never asked of me to go from 34 to 33 units. Jim would never agree to that. He would never agree to that. So I know I didn't comply with that. I did comply with the request to take Unit 20 off of there because the planning board said they didn't want to approve the location of it. And I said, that's fine, because as far as I'm concerned, what they're approving is only the drainage and roadway construction. That was it. And that's what that plan says. That plan's not a recorded plan either. It's a plan that's supposed to take place or replace the sheets within the original plan set for the roadway construction. It says it right on it.
Well, my guess, I'm guessing that we would need to evaluate this entirely on whether when this set condominium was built, the applicant requested a 1,000 foot setback. And it seemed reasonable. It was passed before my time, whatever. I don't have a problem with that. Housing, whatever. So this is a commercial zone. So I guess is we need to evaluate it just on criteria for a variance on whether there's a valid reason for creating a new structure outside of the new residential structure outside of the residential zone. So I guess we probably need to go to the criteria with Charlie and having him explain how that would work, because this certainly is not grandfathered by any means.
And nor are they stating that, if I'm correct, Peter. All they're doing, from what I talked with Robert about, they're moving that house that couldn't go in between 18 and 19 over here. They want to move it. It's not done. It's not built. And the only way they could locate it on this section of the property is if we grant a 50-foot variance. Now, they still have to get an amended site plan approved by the planning board. That'll be the approval. If we agree to the variance, that's going to be part of the approval. And they also will need to submit revised condo docs for this unit and location to reflect that. So
I don't think the condo docs would probably are specific to any
yeah,
site.
I got this from the planning board, so that's why I thought I'd add it in. But
Yeah,
it doesn't. But technically, from our perspective, it really
I
doesn't.
think restrictions are all
On all of them,
units,
anyways.
regardless of where they are.
And we know it's an age-restricted property anyways. It's designated age-restricted.
Yes.
So we have to make, and the application reflects that, and so the notice of decision would have to reflect that as well.
Right. That's the whole unit. All the unit is, but
Correct.
I'm just interested to see how.
I was remiss in not saying to you that you had an opportunity to defer this case because there's only 4 of us instead of 5. So, and I apologize, I should have said that earlier when we started the hearing. So if that's an issue, we can't continue without prejudice to the next meeting. It's up to you.
You want to continue?
You still need 3 of the 4 of us to agree. Okay. I just want to be sure you knew that going into the phrase, so to speak. Comments from the board? Are there any comments from the audience that would like to speak to this issue? Yes, sir. Could you come to the
My
microphone?
name is Jim Stark. I live in Logan Way, and I am against any changes being approved. I do take exception to his description of the previous developer and the new developer. My paperwork is signed by the previous and the new, so that's a misconception. This person developing now does have all the knowledge of what went on there before. Variance after variance, this is not done exactly right, that's not done exactly right. Building things, even when they're told not to do it by the town, by more than one board. So this goes on and on and on for us. So, in my opinion, we've had enough variances and enough changing things around. I've been there for 6 years, I bought into what I bought into. If they can just willy-nilly change things around, that's not what I paid for. I don't even get paid directly because of all this. So I'm against any allowing of further nonsense out there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to comment? Yes, ma'am. Come to the microphone.
Holly Pouliot, 6 Bed Grass Circle. Is the parcel of land that Jim Dufresne would like to move number 22 owned by Jim? Is it owned by Jim? Or is it owned by the HOA?
Hawkesbury to South Kingston.
It's the LLC. It's owned by the LLC.
Okay, okay.
I'd like to question that a little bit.
Okay.
My name is Renee Spiegel. I live at 8 Mulligan Way. And if you look at our condo docs say that each house has their limited common area, and the association owns and manages all the common area in our complete land unit, which is land unit 5, okay? Where all the residential homes are. So the common area is owned and managed by the association based upon our condo documents. And our association manages the common areas. So I'm not quite sure how this works. Because the association is responsible and owns all of land unit 5. If you look at the condo docs, it clearly states that.
So are you saying that the condo association owns the land that's being proposed to locate this 34 house?
That's my take on it, yes, based upon our legal documents.
Okay, well, we'll see if we can find an answer to that. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add?
The other question I would have, Jimmy, which septic system, not leach field, which septic system is it going to attach to?
Mulligan.
It's going to attach to Mulligan Way where it was going to before?
Yes.
Okay, so is that where all the houses along that part of Bentgrass where yours is at went up? Do they all hook to Mulligan Way?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so it wouldn't go into the Bentgrass, which we're already having trouble with. Okay, I guess that's the only question.
Thank you. And would anyone else like to speak?
Oh, could I just make one comment? The limited common area that we would be giving up becomes common area. It's just merely a trade-off. Limited common area moves from one place to another. The common area now becomes where the unit was. So it doesn't really affect the common area. It's still the same area in total.
Okay, does the square footage stay the same, John?
Relatively the same, yes.
I can understand the exchange piece of it.
Okay.
The question I would have is, since the association owns the common land, shouldn't there be a requirement that the members of the association, the owners, have to buy into this in total? So the ownership would have to take a vote to say, are we in favor of moving forward? Wouldn't that logically be?
I understand.
Are you asking if the association would has the right to vote on whether to locate the 20th house in that spot?
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
I don't know.
Because that's the
That
way
would
the
be the
association
question,
documents
that
are
would be
set
the
up.
question that you would ask your attorney.
Right, and we are going to, but, that's the way the association documents read. That's the only question I had. I just want to make that aware that I do think that maybe the association should have a say in this.
And that may be appropriate, and again, I don't know for a fact, it may be appropriate at the planning board, because the only thing, the house has not been built.
Right.
If they get approval through the planning board, then they would need this variance. If they don't, if we can grant the variance and the house may never be built.
No, I understand that. I understand. Okay, thank you.
Can I help you on the common area, limited common area a little bit?
Sure.
Land unit 35 is owned by Hawksridge. Hawksridge pays taxes on the limited common area. It's not common area.
This parcel is not common area?
Land unit 35, you have a tax bill there for land unit 35 that Hawksridge gets billed for. Hawksridge owns land unit 35.
Then how does the land unit, we're supposed to be responsible for the entire land unit. So how can you have a parcel of land?
Have you paid the taxes on land unit 35?
I think we're getting far afield here.
All right, thank you.
We are getting a little far afield. So that needs to be settled, I'm sure, from your perspective as well.
One
Yes,
more
sir.
question then.
Could you come to the microphone, please?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, it's hard to hear.
One last question then. Can you authorize or create or allow for variance on, like if I came to you and said I want a variance on property that I don't have a right to do that, could you do it anyway? If I just had a map that said that? So that if
We
I-
can
if I
grant
came
a
to you
variance to the-
and
oh.
said, I
Well,
want to do this, even though I may or may not own that property and all that.
he's telling us.
Hawksridge owns land unit 35.
He's telling us that he owns the property.
But that's not the question I'm asking. I'm just asking as a general question. If I came to you and I misrepresented myself and you found out later, if you thought in good standing that I was telling the truth, but you found out later, I never found out later that it was not the truth, do you revoke that or does that just keep going?
I'm not sure how exactly that works, but when we get an application, one of the things individuals have to provide is either be the owner of record attending here or provide authorization from the owner of record. And so when we get an application, it's the owner of record or permission from the owner of record to come before us. So unless there's something wrong with the owner of record on our property files,
So
or
being a condominium, everyone owns the common property. Is what I'm getting.
Not the limited common area.
yeah, you guys need to figure that out.
I think it's pretty simple. Susan can ask the tax collector tomorrow who the owner of land unit 35 is, and it should be told who the land unit owner is.
I don't understand the difference between lot 20 and land unit 35.
I'm sorry?
You're saying land unit 35, but this
Yes.
is, but this is for, oh, that's where the new location is
Yes.
for 20?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, does that land unit 35, since there was only 34 land units proposed, does that appear on a plot, tax map anywhere? You talked about land unit 35, you only proposed 34 land units. Where'd you come up with land unit 35? Is
It's on
that
the plan. It's on the sign plan by the plan.
land unit 35, is that the part that's outlined in?
That's where it shows the proposed clubhouse. That has not been built.
It's not one of the residential units, it's the clubhouse.
Oh, it's the clubhouse.
Yes.
Is land unit 35. Is that what, so what's the proposed commercial office space that's adjacent to this proposed unit 20?
I don't think we're here for any proposed office space.
No.
You
We're
you
here
have
for
it you
variance
have
for
it
the
on the
house.
map here, proposed commercial office space.
I'm sorry, what?
In this common area, this is all land unit 4.
Inside the limited common area?
No, just common area.
I think it's limited common area.
It shows on the map as common. So I'm just stating what appears on your chart. And it
I think we're
says,
here for a variance for the house. I think that's what we're
I
talking about.
know, but he's
I'm
looking at
asking you
the
what's adjacent to this land that you're proposing to use for a house, a residence, and you have a proposed commercial office space. What's the distance from your house to the proposed commercial offices?
I don't see proposed commercial on this
You
one.
see the little boxes that are
Oh, over here, okay, I got it. It's over
the
here.
adjacent lot. What's the distance from your commercial office space to your proposed Unit 20 residential?
It's this space here. Got it?
What's the footage from that house, where you're proposing the new one to there?
Oh, what's the footage?
I would say it's about 100 feet, maybe a little more.
200 feet.
Up to 200 feet between the two.
It's 50 feet over the line. The same house is 50 feet wide, is over the line.
That's what that's what that's 50 feet.
It's 50 feet over the line.
Again, we're not gonna hear you unless you come to a microphone. I'm sorry, we are taping, so it goes, you can watch on YouTube tomorrow. Go ahead.
I'm Beverly Manning, I live on North Road. I'm trying to understand the relationship between, are we 50 feet over the line, and that 50 feet is the width of the house?
The 50 feet, what, the variance is for, the house has to be 1,000 feet from 125. It's actually 950 feet from 125, so they need a 50-foot
Okay,
variance.
so that's the 50 feet of the width of the house.
The width of the house
It's
is 42 feet.
over. It's 42.
Okay.
So you say from here, where's that other building?
Right there.
This one?
Yep.
Okay, so 45, it might be 100. Where's Vines construction?
He's quite a ways away, probably
Down-
300 or 400 feet
down
away,
closer to
north.
at least.
Is this 125 up here?
Nope, you gotta be well
We
off
have
the
this
map.
back further.
Yeah.
And who determines 1,000 feet? If it was appropriate to keep 1,000 feet?
It's the ordinance.
It's the ordinance.
Yes, ma'am.
I do have one question. That whole commercial office space, we are not in favor of that. That's on our land unit, which is a residential only land unit.
But that's not up for an option tonight. I appreciate your comments, and thank you for them, but that's not up for discussion, and no permits have been
And
applied.
that is not being considered.
Not tonight, it's not, absolutely not. I can't tell you what's being considered down the road. Beyond, but as far as we're concerned, it's not on the
Not
table,
there. Just the house.
just the house.
We have to meet criteria as our learning friend has said.
Yes.
All right. Now let's,
So I assume you're ready to go through the 5 criteria.
well, unless Mrs. Zilch has it already done.
Well, he has it done in the packet he gave me.
Oh, he does?
Yes.
Would you like me to go through the criteria?
Yeah, would you please, that would be
Glad
great.
to, sure.
Thank you.
So, the variance request, as you said, is to allow the one particular unit to be 950 feet from the center line of 125, whereas the setback is 1,000 feet. So, the criteria is 5, and I'll go through them one by one. Number 1, the proposed variance will not be contrary to the public interest because my response for you is that the proposed location of the relocated unit is in an area that would appear to be within the planned development. Access to the community water system and septic system is close by and can be tied to without interruption to the existing occupants. There is an available location for the driveway where ample site distance exists to ensure that this proposed unit will not create an unsafe or disruptive access. The supporting LCA area can be dedicated to the unit, will not encroach upon the abutting unit or the potential community center and its parking. In all, granting the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. Second criteria, the spirit and the intent of the ordinance is preserved because, and my response is that this zone allows for age-restricted residential use within the restriction that it has to be set back 1,000 feet from the center line of Route 125. The 1,000-foot setback from 125 is likely meant to maintain a commercial corridor along the highway. And considering this developed site, the existing commercial uses, contractor's yard, proposed commercial condominiums, indoor recreation building, and golf club house achieve that goal.
Excuse
Sure.
me?
What makes this property special is that there is a transitioning from purely commercial uses located close to Route 125 to recreational uses with an approved by variance 7-unit age-restricted veterans condominiums closer to the 1,000-foot setback. Allowing this one unit to be located just within the 1,000-foot setback maintains that uniqueness. Granting the variance preserves the intent of the ordinance where it allows flexibility in how a property can be maintained or managed to transition from one use to another with consideration given to the intensity of the uses. So again, speaking about the commercial close to 125 and as it transitions to this residential. Number 3, there is substantial justice in granting the variance because, and the response we offered is, granting the variance will allow for resolution to a long-standing conflict created by the previous developer. This will allow for the current developer to move forward with finalizing construction within the development so that the community can fully enjoy the neighborhood as intended. The request will not adversely affect the existing development, but will only enhance it. Number 4, the values of surrounding properties will not be diminished because, and the response is that the existing development was designed and approved to support 34 total age-restricted single-family condominium units. Relocating one unit to this location and abandoning its previous location ensures that the unit total remains at 34. The unit to be constructed in the requested location shall be in keeping with all the previously constructed homes and will enhance the value of the community. The area in which this home is to be constructed, adjacent to LCA 34, will meld with existing development. Although the unit is proposed within the 1,000-foot setback, it would not be discernible due to the orientation of the development and the roadway that serves it, meaning that this unit, once constructed, would not be the first unit that you would encounter as you entered the neighborhood, where units 9 and 8 and 1 preceded on the left side of the roadway. And as such, the 1,000-foot setback would be interminable. Granting of the variance to allow the unit to be relocated to an area that maintains continuity with all other homes and allows for the final completion of the development would only enhance the surrounding property values. And lastly, number 5, literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship, and our response is that the intent of the setback is to maintain a demarcation of 1,000 feet from the center line of Route 125 between commercial uses and age-restricted residential housing. The idea is to limit uses along the highway to commercial as the highest and best use for such corridor. In this particular case, the property has supported both commercial and residential uses within the same project, and each has benefited from each other. Both access from the same roadway utilize and share much of the same infrastructure, and both are fully utilized without conflict. This request to allow just one of the age-restricted single-family condominium units to be just inside the setback does not adversely affect the intent of the ordinance as demonstrated. Denial of the request results in unnecessary hardship where it forces the developer to construct the dwelling in the location originally approved but now partially occupied by a community member.
Thank you, Mr. Zoll. Gentlemen, you ready for the?
Just before the last statement you made, that we would force the development of the condominium where originally approved, that approval was rescinded.
By who?
By the planning board.
I don't think so.
I can guarantee it, but, and agreed to by the applicant. So it can't go back to 1920, between 18 and 19. First off, it's right on the driveway. And so, that was the reason why the cease and desist order was put in, and was the reason why we spent many, many months with the previous engineer of hesitating to say, hey, we'll do an as-built, and we get it done, and the planning board say, no, you need to produce a plan. The plan was finally produced, which allowed the septic system to go in there, and access to the septic system for maintenance. And so that's why it couldn't go into bent grass circle anymore. And the final approval from the planning board was for the units that exist on the approved plan, which doesn't include this one. And to go back to your previous plan that required amended site plan, is not possible, because that was disapproved. We had an amended site plan which took that out. And so, saying that we could go back and follow a previously approved site plan that was denied, and the selectmen issued a cease and desist order on it because it wasn't followed, wouldn't be possible. So, I'm just getting, I really don't understand how you can claim that you would be forced to build it in between 18 and 19.
Again, that last site plan, that amended site plan was a drainage plan. That was the intent of it. That's why you got our TRC together, condominium association owners, to get that addressed. It was never about the units, the unit location. All it was for to address the drainage of the development. And I know that I was asked to take 20 off the plan. Don't show it. Because the planning board, when they approved the drainage, they didn't want to get caught up with the 20, with lot 20. They didn't want to say that if they approved the plan that showed it in that particular place, that they could go ahead and build it. That's all I complied with. We never ever agreed to say that we're going to be less than 34 units. Never agreed to that. And it's not on that. It still says 34 units on that plan.
May I ask a question, please? Do you believe that if this is approved for a variance, 50-foot variance, your next stop is the planning board?
Yes. And also, one other thing too, is we've just submitted a plan to the planning board to address where Unit 4 got relocated to. Okay, those limited common areas got moved around a little bit when 20 got put in there. Those buildings got moved, a couple were built. Those limited common areas got moved, so we just submitted a plan to go in there to get that addressed as well. And then in between Unit 3 and 4, where 20 had been moved to temporarily before it was disallowed, we're showing now a 25-foot wide access easement. So 20 can't go back in that spot once the planning board approves that one. This is a great location for Unit 20. It resolves a lot of issues.
That's fine. Our concern is the 50-foot variance you've asked for here.
Yes.
If we grant it, you go from here to the planning board, and you'll run into Mr. Cotton, and you better be prepared for him.
Well, I'm not the only one who's
I
attended
know.
all those
Okay.
meetings,
That's okay.
and I do know what we approved, and I do know that it's involved in house locations. So,
Okay, we're not-
anyways,
We're not gonna-
okay, we're not gonna debate that right now. What I am gonna bring up is the definition of unnecessary hardship from RSA 674-33. For purposes of this subparagraph, unnecessary hardship means that owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property referred to as the relationship test. So what is there unique to this property, unlike all the other ones in that development or in that area, that would create an unnecessary hardship?
I've already stated it. It's the uniqueness of the property is that it already has commercial development in the corridor, right on the 125 corridor. It transitioned into a recreational use and then into a residential use. It's unique. There's only one property like that I know of in Kingston that has all those elements all on one piece of property. Shouldn't be a hard line of 1,000-foot setback. It doesn't really make any difference. And that's what makes the property unique.
Is land unit 35 from land unit 34, for example? Is that what makes it unique from the other land units in that development?
You lost me on that.
What makes it in unit 35, which is the one you're proposing to do, that's going to be outside the setback, what makes that land unit unique from all the other land units?
Well, I don't think the focus isn't on what makes the unit unique, it's what makes the property unique.
Okay, I'm just pointing out that that's the definition of hardship, and
I think we need
That is subject to interpretation, as you know.
yes, but that's why they went back and redefined it for us.
I'm assuming you're ready for the criteria. Okay. I'm just going to do it verbally. Is that okay with the gentleman? I think that's worked out well for us, so that it's clear how we vote and so forth. The first one is, will there be a diminution in, will there be a diminution in value of surrounding properties as a result of granting this variance? Excuse me. Yes or no? Yes? No?
I would say, no.
No? No, all the way around, okay, so that passes. Number 2, will the granting of this variance be of benefit to the public interest?
I'd say no. I'd say any, we've had heard members of the public from the area, and they're opposed to it, so, I would say no, not for
Well, I'm gonna say yes, because I think overall this project has been a long time in the works, and I think it's come to one of the best points it's been in a long time.
Yes.
I agree with you.
So it's 3-1, excuse me, but it does pass. Number 3, will liberal enforcement result in unnecessary hardship? I think it will, because I think it's gonna be hard to find another spot on the project plan to locate this unit.
And I again, say no.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so 3-1 again, and that also passes. Number 4, will substantial justice be done if this variance is granted?
Yes.
Yes, 1,
Yes.
2,
I think so. I shouldn't really,
Yes.
I'm gonna say yes, just because, I can't think of the.
A reason not
You made the point.
Okay. And number 5, will the use contemplated by the petitioner result in obtaining this variance be contrary to the spirit of the ordinance?
I don't think so.
And I think so, and I think that setback was requested by the applicant in the first place, and he should be able to anyways.
So the answer is no for you as well, and so it's 4-0. So all 5 criteria pass.
No, I said that,
They pass, but you were said
I
no
said on
on
the
2
last
of them.
one, what was the question?
The last one.
The last one was, is,
Substantial justice.
No.
no, will it be contrary to the spirit of the ordinance?
And I would say yes, because the
Okay.
ordinance defined that setback for a reason,
Okay.
and if you just keep chiseling away, it's gonna move the ordinance.
So it's 3-1 on that one as well. Okay, now I'd like a motion,
Another motion to grant the variance, we grant the
grant 50-foot
50-foot
variance
variance
for an age-restricted, single-family home
on tax map on 3 lot 4 LU 4020.
Okay, the one condition is that the amended site plan must be approved by the planning board. The condo docs are not ready. Okay, Peter, are we all set with them? They needed a condition on the amended site plan being approved by the planning board.
Yeah, so,
They need site plan approval by the planning board.
yeah, obviously, yeah, but, I'm just looking at the distance here. Okay, looks like it's about 50 feet, so to the edge of the corner of the property, so, of the house.
Correct, that's correct. Okay, all those,
Wait a second.
is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Was that the only condition?
Yeah, the only condition, yeah, the condo docs would come out of the planning
Oh,
board.
that's right,
anyways.
that's what you mentioned that.
Yeah,
Yeah, we need to make the site plan.
and the amended site plan's the only thing that's contingent upon. Okay, so I have yes from Chuck, myself, and you say no, so 3-1 again. So yes, the variance has been granted for the 50-foot setback. We have 30 days before it can be appealed by anyone that would come up with some new information, and I'll have the letter of notice of decision out at the beginning of the week. Thank you very much. Is there any other business to come before us this evening? Oh, candidates night, anyone, February 24th, 7 o'clock, Thursday, here, come meet your contestants. Okay, the meeting is adjourned at 8:25, unless you get some business.
No, this is just a technical question.